Hey guys, I'm going to go over some of the notes that will help you get through the percent composition 1 and percent composition 2 assignments. So what percent composition is it is a way to find out how much of an element is in a compound. So if we wanted to do like a real life example, I just dumped out my pen cup here onto the table here, and I had 5 writing utensils in my pen cup. Okay, 3 of those writing utensils were pens, 1 was a pencil, and 1 was a highlighter. Okay? If we wanted to, we could calculate how much of my writing utensils in my pen cup were pens, how much was pencils, and how much was highlighters. So, if we have 5 writing utensils and 3 of them are pens, that means that 60% of the writing utensils are pens, and then 20% are pencils and 20% are highlighters. Okay. Now, we're going to be doing something very similar in this assignment where we have a sample and we want to calculate how much of that sample is, certain elements. So it's really not that difficult to do. So the way that you're going to figure that out is you are going to take the mass of the element where we have 1 mole of that element. So basically you're taking the mass off the periodic table. So you're taking the mass of the element and you are dividing it by the mass of 1 mole of the compound. Okay? So you're going to take the mass of the element per mole, and you're going to take the mass of 1 mole of the compound, and then you're going to multiply that number by 100 to give you an answer in a percent. Okay, so let's do a couple practice problems of these. So let's say that I have 1 mole of H2O. And I want to figure out what percent of this is oxygen. Okay, so the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to take the mass of 1 mole of the element I'm looking for, which is oxygen. If we look at our periodic table, let me grab mine real quick. We can see that oxygen, 1 mole is 16 grams. So I have 16 grams, and then I'm going to divide that by the mass of the whole compound. So I'm going to need to take 2 H's, which the mass of a hydrogen is 1.01, and I've got 2 of them, and then I've got my oxygen, okay? And then I'm going to enter that in my calculator, and then I'm going to multiply the result by 100 to give me my percentage. Okay, so let me grab my calculator. We've got 16 divided by 1.01, 1.01 plus 16, and that gives us that number. We're going to multiply that by 100 to get it to a percent. So we've got 88.79, and remember I only want 4 numbers in my answer, percent. So if we had 1 mole of water, 88.79% of that mole of water is going to be oxygen, which makes sense because if we look back at the periodic table, hydrogen is very, very small and oxygen's a really big molecule. Okay, it's got 8 protons and 8 neutrons and most of the time 8 electrons. So this is a very big molecule compared to hydrogens, which are very small. So you would expect, if we had 1 mole of water, you would expect most of the molecules there to be oxygens, which they are. Okay, so now I want to figure out what percent is hydrogen. Okay, so let's do this out the long way, and then I'll show you a super easy way to do this. Okay, so first I need to figure out the mass of the element, just like I did up here. Okay, so a hydrogen weighs 1.01 grams, but I have 2 of them. So I have 1.01 plus 1.01, okay? Because again, I have 2 hydrogens in this molecule, okay? And then I'm going to divide that by the mass of the whole compound, okay? And then I'm going to take that number and I'm going to multiply it by 100. So I've got 1.01 plus 1.01. I'm going to divide that by 1.01 plus 1.01 plus 16. And that gives me that number. I'm going to hit times 100 to give me the percentage. And it is 11.21% of that mole is hydrogen. Okay. Now, the easier way to do this, if we look at this molecule, we only have two elements here. We have hydrogen and we have oxygen. I figured out that 88.79% of it was oxygen, and you can only go to 100%. So you can just take 100 minus 88.79 to give you the rest of that sample, which in this case is oxygen. That only works if you're dealing with two elements, because like if it was some CHO and we found out the O, we couldn't just do simple, subtraction there because we would find that the rest of it was those two. Okay, so we could, however, find how much oxygen, find how much hydrogen, and then do some simple math to figure out how much carbon. So let's do actually a problem where we use CH and O. Okay, so let's say that we have 1 mole of C2H6O. And we want to find out how much carbon is in that. Okay, so again, first we need to put down the mass of the thing that we're looking for, which is carbon. Okay, and carbon has a mass of 12.01, but I have 2 of them, so I need to put both of them up there. Okay, and then I put the mass of the whole thing down here, which is 12.01 plus 12.01. I have 6 hydrogens. I'm just going to say this number times 6 because I don't want to write all that out. And I have an oxygen. Okay, so I'm going to plug that into my calculator. I'm going to say 12.01 plus 12.01 because those are my 2 carbons, divided by 12.01, 12.01, 1.01 times 6, and 16. And then I'm going to hit times 100 to give me a percent. Oops. I accidentally only hit times 10. So, times 100 to give me a percent, 52.13%. So if I have a mole of this hydrocarbon here, 52.13% of that is going to be carbon atoms. Okay? Now let's find how much of that is hydrogen. All right? So I've got, oops, I didn't want to do that. I've got to put the mass of the thing that I'm looking for, which is 1.01. And remember, I've got 6 of them. Okay? And then down here is the mass, this big number right here. So 12.01 plus 12.01 plus 1.01 times 6 plus 16. So I'm going to plug that into my calculator. And I'm going to say 1.01 times 6 divided by 12.01 plus 12.01 plus 1.01 times 6 plus 16. And I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to hit times 100 to give me a percent. So my answer is 13.15%. Okay? Now, I could do the math to figure out how much oxygen I have left, or I could just subtract, because I know that these 3 numbers have to equal 100%. Okay, so if I have 100% and 52.13 of this 100% is carbon, and 13.15% is hydrogen, I can say 100 minus this gives me 34.72, which must be what my oxygen percentage is, because this has to equal 100. Okay, now if we look at, just kind of the periodic table to check ourselves here, we have carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens. Okay, oxygen is the bigger of the 3, and hydrogen is really small. Okay, so our hydrogen number needs to be really small. That's true. Okay, our oxygen number needs to be pretty big compared to the carbon. However, we have 2 carbons and an oxygen. So I would expect our oxygen number to be kind of medium in size, which it is. And then I would expect our carbon number to be the largest because there's 2 of them and carbons are pretty big. Okay, which is true. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you there. If you need any more help, please feel free to email us and I will make more videos, or we can have a Zoom chat or whatever. But let us know if you need anything, and hopefully that gets you through the next 2 assignments. Bye, guys.